Hello, hello. This is Alisia Young, and welcome to Teach Me Freedom. This podcast is about learning how to live a freer life from authors, entrepreneurs, and experts. Those who have done it and who teach others how to do it as well, and what it feels like while applying those methods to our lives along the way. Every episode will deliver resources, anecdotes, and or reviews to support you in living a more freedom-filled life. Let's jump in. Please note the video version of this episode is available on YouTube at Teach Me Freedom. The link is also mentioned in the show notes. Enjoy. I am so excited to bring you our guest on today's show, our guest expert, who is Dave Ruel. He's the creator of the Effic company, and he's the writer of Done by Noon, the book we'll be discussing here. And he's also the creator of this wonderful tool, the Effic planners, which I've been using for close to 2 years now. So really excited for him to be on the show. And we'll just start by really discussing how we first met, and then we'll kind of go from there, because I'd really love for you to hear from Dave and some of the questions I'm so excited to ask.
That's hilarious.
So,
The way we met, because I think I was speaking at Megan Walker's event in Toronto,
yes.
and you were there, right? But
I think I went to the one after that. I think I went to the one in 2019, I think. But yes, I did attend one of those for sure. Yes.
But you became like so you know of us through Megan, I think, right? At first.
Yes.
And I remember. So here's the thing. I have Cedric and I have Chloe at customer support, and they were both on vacation, right? So I was like, you know what? No worries, guys. I will cover for you. I mean, usually like it's pretty smooth, and we don't receive that many calls. So we have a 1-800 number, but usually all the support is done through the ticket system. And we receive a call through the 1-800 number. It was actually redirected to my phone line, and I talked to you, and I remember you was like, how come the CEO is like answering? I was like, well, they're on vacation, and I'm filling over for them. Like, let me know. I'll check on it. And it was something with your order. I can't remember what it was.
Yes. Yeah.
And then we chatted. And, yeah. So there you go. So, and we met each other that way. And after that, you became interested in the certification we were launching. And then obviously you became an Effic certified coach. And we kept in contact. Well, obviously, you're in the Effic environment now, so we keep in contact regularly. But you're always. Here's the thing I like about you, Alisia, is that you always have a smile on your face. Always, even though like sometimes like, hey, can you guide me on this or that? But you always like have a smile on your face, and it's always fun, to be around you.
Thank you so much. That means so much. That means a lot. Thank you. I'm so grateful to have met you through Megan and learned about like your tools and just your whole philosophy. So I'm really grateful for that, and I'm excited about the changes that I've seen in my life and my business and just my perspective on time, and really realizing like one of the biggest things that I recognized from your book, and we're going to jump in and actually you're going to read us some bullet points from what your book is about, but you've really taught me some important things, such as the importance of self-leadership. To be able to even lead or make your goals come true, we have to lead with ourselves, and taking that self-responsibility. And really, when you emphasize the importance of our time, the importance of our creativity, you really shifted my perspective on what I do is what I contribute to the world, and you help me to value my creativity and realize that is what drives everything that we end up building or what we end up putting into the world. So you really help me to really appreciate that much more and want to take better care of it. So thank you for that. And so would you like to walk us
You're
through
welcome.
page 6 of your book about what we can expect to learn from and implement with the Done by Noon book?
I love it. And I love that you highlighted so much of that book.
Oh my goodness, there's so many highlights in here. I want to read this annually.
The inside pages now match the cover, right? The cover is yellow, and a lot of yellow in there. But, we're going to expand on different points, but the main thing with Done by Noon is that, and if I tell you about, if I tell you, what if you could be done by noon, it's going to obviously appeal to you from something, because of something that you don't have, or that you don't have anymore. And that thing is freedom. And that book really is to make you understand how you can better reconnect with, I would say, the three freedoms, which are your freedom of time, because when we start a business, we want to do things when we want. As you said, your creative freedom, which is, in my opinion, the most important freedom, because as entrepreneurs, that's the one thing that we have that sets us, set us apart from, other people, is that to have that creativity, but also have that freedom of expressing that creativity. And more than often when we start a business, that's what we want. We want to work on what we want, but then we drift away from that because obviously we get busy and there's other things that happen in our lives and our businesses. And we end up drifting, from that. And the third one is obviously your financial freedom. You want to make a living out of it. You want to be paid, to do what you do well, right? So these are three things. So pretty much in the book, we talk about how you can accomplish more by noon than other entrepreneurs in a full day. So what you do in less than 20 hours than what you used to do in 40 hours plus. We talk about different, high performance routines and rituals that you can implement in your life. Really how to, multiply your productivity by focusing on the two types of tasks that really, really move the needle in your business. We call them the power moves. And so we can, I assume we're going to talk about it later in this chat. And how to really harness, how to manage responsibly and sustainably your three finite resources that you have as an entrepreneur: your time, your energy, and your attention. And it's not easy as an entrepreneur, but we look at it through, I would say, an efficiency lens. And we have an efficiency first approach to productivity that we can also talk about. But it's as much as it is, as we have systems and we have different tools that you can implement, as much as it is as you said, a mindset shift that I want you to have, for your business and your life.
Absolutely. That's so beautiful. That's so well said. And honestly, like hearing those points, I was like, okay, teach me how to do this now. Like I need to know how to do this now. And I feel like a lot of people feel the same way because our time is precious. And oftentimes we may look back and be like, oh, well, I mean, look at all these hours that we've already lived, and going forward, really want to do things differently. But it's like, how do we actually do that differently? What actions do we need to take? What systems do we need to put in place? And what mindsets do we need to shift in order to make these things reality? So thank you for sharing that. And one of the exercises I wanted to share, because this was very monumental for me. So as some of you may know, I'm currently I do have a business. It's called Eat and Live Free, and I'm also an author. And so building those sides of my life, but I'm also in the working world as well. So I'm also working in the real world, not just completely in my business. And so this exercise was a big deal for me because it made me think about is it worthwhile to do everything yourself, especially when you're starting up or building and have a limited amount of time. And so this is a drifting cost exercise. And basically before we actually discuss it, I noticed that it was an exercise that helped us to determine the value per hour of doing something versus something you really emphasize in the book, which is delegating or outsourcing different tasks. And so can you speak to more about these? You talked about these different zones of geniuses. So can you walk us through what those zones of geniuses are and kind of a little brief description about each? And then I'd love to share about how this has helped me to make some big decisions. And I know I'm going to be using this going forward as well.
Yeah. And that's a tool you're going to keep using, most of your life. And here's the thing, right? When you do something, especially in business, you don't know what you don't know. You think that things are going to be a certain way, and they're not, because you don't know what, like, we never really know what we're truly great at until we do it. We never know what we really like until we try it. And, it's like tasting food, right? Like if you have a you can assume that you can do something or not do something, or like something or not like something, but it's until you actually taste that food that you're going to know, right? Like you don't know. And the same thing I think would work. And it's having that self-awareness piece of understanding that for yourself. And that's not going to be a perfect, science, but we've developed that little exercise and that little calculation to make you understand or realize how much money actually, because, humans are really good at understanding when we put a dollar amount to what they do. It's like going to cost you this. And it's not necessarily like what you lose for money. It's the opportunity cost. And it's extremely important even when you start. I'm always like, okay, try to do things like see what you're great at and what you suck at. And that's what, that's a great thing to go about it. But then it's having the self-awareness to understand, okay, now here's what I'm really good at. This is the things that I should not be doing, right? And having a cost associated with it makes you understand better. So we have that little map, and we go with the principle that there are things, a handful of things that we do better than most people, and we call that your power zone. So it's a handful of things. Usually it revolves around what we call the superpower, which is usually one thing, and it's very hard to pinpoint, exactly that thing. And that's why we're saying like the power zone is everything that usually gravitates, around that, right? So if you can do things that gravitate around that, and you can actually pinpoint what they are, and that your actions, and that you start focusing on that, but understanding that in business is composed of multiple types of tasks of different nature. There's different contexts, there's different, situations. So you have to take that into account. But the core thing is that understanding what you are actually better at and the things that you are not that great at. So we talked about drifting a lot in the book, meaning that if you picture yourself, you're going to a specific destination, and the fastest way to go there is in a straight line. But little by little, you start drifting off course until you're actually not on the road anymore, and you're lost in some kind of wooded area, and it's hard to get out of because you're totally, lost in the dark shadows. But that's the same thing in entrepreneurship. We do things that we want this, and all of a sudden, boom, 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 we start drifting. So there's different zones. So, and which each zone, there's a coefficient attached to it. So we call that the drifting coefficient. So let's say, so you have your power zone, you have your average zone, you have your subpar zone, and you have your ignorance zone. And you don't want to go there, obviously, but we all do at one point. And it's understanding, the opportunity cost. So the calculation based on that is take the amount of money that you make and divide it by the number of hours you work per week, multiply by the number of weeks you work per week. And you're going to get an actual hourly rate. Like that's how much money you're making per hour. And understanding that every single time you're drifting away within your zones of activity, you will understand that there's a cost to it. So let's say, I don't know, your hourly rate is $50 an hour or $30, whatever. Let's say 50 because it's easier to multiply. But when you venture into, for example, your subpar zone, which has the coefficient of 4, that means that you are not making $200. That means there's an opportunity cost of $200 per hour. And now you're going to have to understand that, okay, well, I'm doing all this and I do this for 5 hours a week. Well, there's $1,000 you are not making. And we're not talking about, obviously, it's not an exact science, but it makes you understand that in the future, this is the amount of money you will be you're willing to kind of let go by doing that. It's like, saying someone that every time you get drunk, it takes away a week out of your life or something like that. You're going to think about, okay, well, maybe I should not get drunk like that often because I don't want to die at the age of 37, right? Mm-hmm. So I should be dead by now. But I mean, it's important to understand that. So, and it's part of, you talk about self-leadership, but it's part of the self-leadership process, which is composed, first of all, self-discipline. So understand that there's small things you need to do right. Understanding that, so self-awareness, understanding yourself, and it's a never-ending process. That's a great thing about it. You're what you thought could be a superpower, and you realize that you do things and you realize that, okay, well, that's actually my power zone, but that's my true superpower, right? And you only do that by reflect and understanding and doing. And the self-respect piece of self-leadership. So self-respect is understanding, your own ambitions, your own limitations, your strengths, and yeah, going back, to that composes self-leadership. And the better self-leader you can be, I can promise you that the better your business will be.
There was a brief lapse of issues with the Wi-Fi, so you'll notice that the conversation takes a little bit of a shift here.
Where is computer technology in your zone of genius, Alisia? Is that in your power zone? Is that in your average zone?
That's a good question. I would say it's in my average zone. Definitely not my power zone, but I like technology and I've become more patient with it. I don't freak out as quickly as I used to in the past, but definitely not my power zone. I don't necessarily like it, but I like the benefits that it provides.
I think a lot of entrepreneurs are like that, where it's all like in our average zone, but we do it, but it could be a thing that you do, especially with podcasts and looking at like different aspects of producing a podcast.
Yes.
So there are things that actually it's a great exercise that you're really great at. And there are things you like show notes, for example. Like I could try to do show notes. I was like, that is in my ignorant zone. I'm terrible at that. Let's look at the ways to delegate, outsource, or automate that,
Yes. And just have people who love doing that and who are great at doing that.
Oh my gosh.
Like,
I'm amazed.
Process.
You have Andrew who does ours, and I was like, you are amazing. I mean, how you do that? That's just normal. Like, no, it's not.
That's awesome. That's the thing about like having a great team. You can all like bounce off of everybody's strengths and become a strong unit as a result of that.
But that's the beauty of it. What you suck at, someone is actually great at it and loves doing that thing. So there you go.
Absolutely. And so my next question is one of a relational nature, because something that I really admire about you is the importance that you place on your relationship with your wife, Corinne. And sorry, am I pronouncing her name right? Corinne?
Yeah, that's perfect.
Okay, perfect. And then your two daughters, and it's something that you write about in the book. You also discuss it in the course, and even with communications, it's so clear that nope, this is like non-negotiable. You talk about how you've structured your days to make sure it's non-negotiable, and so that brings two questions. But I'll ask you the first one, and then I'll ask you the next one. Is how do you think your life would be different if you didn't make these changes? So how do you think things, I know it doesn't really help to think of, oh, this is how things would be because we're not living that life. But when you decided to put these things in place, like why was it so important to you? And how do you think your life would be now if you hadn't made those changes?
Oh, well, I mean, I think my family life impacted a lot the way I operate, in the world. And I think, a lot. That's where you see, like, it pretty much goes back to everything, understanding why you're in business in the first place. And for me, when I was doing that, there was always, we do the big picture exercise. Like you had the 13 questions in the book, for example, you can answer, but there's an exercise you coach your students to with understanding like what you truly want ultimately. And the big picture exercise helps you understand, yes, like, where you want to be and the things you want to do, on the perfect day, but also it's going to highlight your core values. It's going to highlight not only what you value, but what your values are. And for me, it's always very clear that sustainability is a big piece, and loyalty as well is a big piece. And everything I do in life is based around that. So I'm asking myself always the same questions: is this what I truly want for myself? And I had to make very tough decisions in my professional life, in my personal life, to stay true to that. Like, for example, in 2016, when I sold By Optimizers and then 2017 started Effic, kind of by accident, like as a result of that. But in 2016, I had bought into that supplements company in 2014, and I was acting as the COO for 2 years, co-owner and CEO for 2 years. And we did great. Like we did really, really well, turned around the business in 18 months. And the business was doing extremely well. But then me and my two co-owners were like, okay, where do we bring them? And my two friends who are still the owners of the company, they didn't have kids, and it was a different reality. For me, my youngest daughter was turning 2, and it was a different vibe, a different dynamic in my life. And they were like, listen, we really want to go pedal to the metal for the next 3 to 5 years. And we think we can bring it there. And I was like totally in with that, obviously with the mission and everything, because the mission, and I'm still a huge fan of Bioptimizers and the company, and Matt and Wade are still, some of my best friends. But the decision was that it's not the way I picture my life. You know what I mean? And even though we can say, oh, it's only 2 to 5 years. Okay, 2 to 5 years, my daughter's going to be 7. It's going to be 5 years where I'm going to be working quite a bit, where this is not what I picture for myself. So it's not about, oh, I want to get there, but I'm willing to sacrifice everything in the meantime. It's understanding how I can be fulfilled by what I do, but also stay true to my values. So I had to adapt things. I sold my shares of my company because, listen, guys, it's just not like I'm not willing to do that right now. Like these are my priorities, and it was great. It was very true to myself. I'm also very clear now on the type of business that I want to run or how I want to have my days. I kind of made peace as well. We talked about ambition appropriation. We talk about it in the book that I'm not sure if that question was coming or not, Alisia, but I think it's important to talk about it.
Awesome.
It's understanding that ambition appropriation, it's looking at other people's ambitions and thinking this is the way I should do. I should go about my own ambitions. And in the entrepreneurial world, we glorify money quite a bit, especially in North America. We glorify, there's different things that we're like, we think we should have, but do we really want that? Mm-hmm. And, I had to be very honest with myself, and respect that. We talk about self-respect, but for me to become a better self-leader was understanding what type of what I wanted to have, in my life and my business. And for me, it was very specific, that freedom of time and creative freedom was very important too. So that was a big important piece of the decision, was like, okay, I'm acting as CEO right now. CEO is not about creating. CEO is about operating. And, I can do that well. There's no problem. I'm a great coordinator, but I'm an entrepreneur first. And I love creating. And I know that when I'm not creating, I'm miserable. So, or I can go about not creating for a little while, but I'm going to crave that. And then I'm going to go and binge on creativity. Yes. And it's not good because you're going to create stuff that doesn't matter. And it's having that space for me to keep creating while, having, a sustainable type of business. So that was another part, for me, that it was not about the money. It was and it was about the time, obviously, but also the freedom, the creative freedom. I wanted to keep creating all the time. And I know my patterns now with business and how it works and how it attaches to my values, that sustainability is big, and everything I'm building now, well, not now, everything that I've built in my life was made to last. I built my house not to resell it. I built my house to have it last, decades, and where my kids are going to grow up and leave at one point. Or not, maybe. I don't know. I hope not. I'm just kidding. But everything that I do, especially like with Effic, for example, that was another shift. It was understanding that it's like, okay, it's good to create, but your values are, you want it to be sustainable. That's why we shifted the model from coaching to certification. So, and you're an Effic certified coach. We're like, okay, if we want to have something that can live even if I'm not there, for example, or the team is not there, the best way to do that is to partner up with coaches who actually serve other people. And the more we're going to do that, the more we're going to impact people, and the more Effic is going to have a life of its own. It's going to have sustainability. Even if I'm not there, I hope the methodology or the philosophy of the work philosophy that backs it will live, for a long time, possibly forever. Oh, work will evolve, but I mean, it's just like what we put out in the world will have sustainability. So, it's very important to understand what your ambitions are. I digress. I can't remember what was the original question, but ambition appropriation is a big problem. And yeah, back to Corinne and my daughters. They literally, everything that I do is based around not just them, but my whole family unit and work-life harmony.
Yeah. Wow, that's so so beautiful, and it's really cool to hear. Like it's hard to believe that. Like I don't even want to think about if you had kind of stayed, if you hadn't really reflected on where you're going and what's important to you, because then that may mean that this book and the planners and just the whole system may not just like such an easy way to put together productivity principles, but also how it connects to all of our lives and our values and all of that. Like it's hard to think of these things not existing. So it takes a lot of courage to, especially when you're in a place and you're like, okay, well, this is kind of what I know, this is what I'm used to, I'm good at it. And then to be like, you know what, take stock and be like, I'm going to go in a different direction because because you have a vision. And these things were these on your mind at the time, by the way, or did they come later?
Do you mean the Effic principles or what we shared in the book?
Like the actual, like, did you have the idea that you wanted to eventually write a book about the Effic principles and
no,
planner itself?
No. Like it really, like and here's the thing, like I believe like when you are, your life is not just a collection of random things. Things are connected. The only thing is that you only see the connection when you turn around and actually spend time looking at the connections, and finding the connections. Thinking that your life is just, just a bunch of things patched together is just not true. and for me, like when I started, I was a physique athlete before I was an entrepreneur, and that was my passion and my obsession too. And then when I discovered online building, like direct response marketing and online business building, I kind of traded that passion for fitness to another obsession for business. And I realized that a lot of the things that I had implemented in my life were actually, like in my personal and fitness life, actually matched the way I should behave in the entrepreneurial world. But it happened because here's the thing with human beings: we're really good at understanding things when our backs are against the wall or when we hit rock bottom, And for me, I needed to burn out in order to understand that. Why are you're so great at doing this and you're not implementing that? And I realized that this is when I started like actually sitting down, look back and say, okay, load management, it's a thing. You know what I mean? How can I apply load management in my in my career? Understanding how to manage better my workload, right? Rest and recovery. Like it's an important part of a workout routine. It's an important part of a program. How come I'm neglecting that in my professional life, right? Periodization, working in 90-day cycles. How come I do that and I don't do that? And I realized I started putting things together and I started building things and understanding it. It was fine tuning. But then obviously I built businesses that way. It enabled me to like work better and work right. The thing is that working right also means that you are aligned to what you want to do. And this is when that's another reason why frequency of alignment is important. It's like looking back, but frequently, understanding that, okay, I'm here now. It's great, but is it what I really want? And always asking yourself that. And when I decided to sell Bioptimizers, and then life is funny. I had the opportunity to coach. I was already doing some coaching. I was coaching some, kind of on the side, because people were seeing me building online businesses. Like, okay, we want to build online businesses too. Okay, we're like, why? Well, I want freedom. That's all they wanted. They want time, they wanted creative, and they wanted financial freedom. And when I started coaching these people, these students, I realized that 100% of them didn't need more strategy, more tactics. What they really needed was actually structure. And it's not native to entrepreneurs to have that type of structure. Even though, like, I looked at myself like, you had it as an athlete and you were not even able to understand that. How can someone who's never had that type of discipline and structure you had in your personal life, like, actually build that in their professional life? Just not going to happen natively. They will have to burn out. They will have to. And I was like, okay, how can I show them that? Like, how can I show them my systems? And this is when I started like working with them and sharing with them what I had built for myself. They were like, oh my God, yes, that's what I needed. And eventually it became, standardized, and Effic was born. And, it was more, and it was understanding as well, like, why are we building all this? Like, it's not just a collection of tools. It's because you look at a training exercise, a training program. It's not just a collection of exercises. There's actually a reason for the program to exist. There's actually a sequence. There's a reason for each exercise. There's a way to do a movement that has a purpose. And it was the same thing with what I did, and it made a cohesive unit. But the main thing is that, yes, productivity is what we all want. We all want to do more, right? But the key is, like, how can you work right? Because there's things about entrepreneurship that, there's one thing we're going to we're going to say right now is that entrepreneurship is hard. Okay. It is not easy. It is hard. I don't think, but it's like anything else. You can love playing hockey. And if you're, let's say, a high professional hockey player, it's not easy to be an NHL player. It's actually very, very hard, because you're playing against people who want to rip your head off, and, it is a survival sport, but you love the sport. It's the same thing with entrepreneurship. It's not easy. It's hard, but you love it, right? So it's one thing. It's hard. But people say, well, it's hard, but I work smart. Yeah, well, if you're not working smart, that's actually not smart to not work smart. Like, just working smart means that, hey, you're just optimizing, the way you work. So you should always look to work smart. It's just a given to. The problem is that people when you think about working smart, they think about hacks. And collecting hacks will not make it a productivity approach. Just like a collection of exercise will not make a workout program. So the key to understand is, how do I work right? So based on what? Based on the outcome. What do you want to accomplish? What do you truly want? Right? We talk about the alignment, the big picture, understanding that, and start breaking it down into, okay, that's my ultimate that I want. What about the next year? What about the next 90 days? What about my next week? What about my next day? What about my next action, right? So understanding that and putting that into context. So having that, but also understanding in the process how to properly manage your time, your energy, and your attention, right? It's understanding that, okay, if I want to go there, like, I want to do it sustainably. And you're going to realize along the way that let's say, like, picture a mountain at the end of a long, long road. And you want to get on top of the mountain. The goal is never to get on top of the mountain. The goal is actually to enjoy the ride on your way there, always. And the more you're going to go, the more you're going to, like, get closer to, always laugh. It's like, picture you're in Calgary and you see, the Rockies there, and you want to go to the mountain. And as you get closer to the mountains, you see that there's more peaks. There's new mountains you never thought were there. Yeah. You're like, oh, this is nice. This is great. I love it. And it's all about the journey, right? And the fulfillment through that journey that's important. But understanding how to manage your time, your energy, and your attention properly along the way. If you go full crazy, you pedal to the metal with your car, on that road, well, I can assure you it will break down. Well, it's the same thing with you as an entrepreneur. You need to understand, that you're going to need to have some schedule. You're going to need to have things you're going to need to pay attention to, and you're going to need to look into your energy and manage it properly if you want your car to drive sustainably, right?
Last a long
and
time.
and
Yeah.
and yeah, so it's it's holistic. I mean it's funny because what I say resonates with a lot of NDs like you know, it's I'm all about seeing it as a holistic thing and not just like, again, collection. It's a whole. It's a yin and a yang. It's life and business. It's just a whole. It's how you're going to address that matters.
Absolutely. Yeah, I love how you put the pieces together, how it all works together,
Mhm.
and starting with that idea of starting with the end in mind. But I also especially love how you said enjoying the journey, because I feel like that's something that a lot of us forget because we get so tied to this is where I want to be. I want to be here yesterday.
Oh,
And then like it's not just like doing things because they need to be done, and getting frustrated by different events along the way, and not enjoying it anymore, and then actually questioning, did I
mhm.
even want to do this in the first place? So I
Yeah.
like that you mentioned that major point as well.
We get caught up in that, right? It's so you see that, and when you coach people, you realize that a lot of people. And
Yes.
here's the thing: like that's what you're sold to, right? Quick
Yep.
fixes. Like as North American, we're exposed to that all the time.
Yeah.
Take this little pill, and pain will go away.
Right away.
But you see it in medicine, the NDs and the MDs have different approaches. You want to do the same thing,
Yep.
just different approach. It's the same thing with productivity and the way you approach entrepreneurship as a whole.
Absolutely. Love that. Thank you, Dave.
You're welcome.
The last question before I ask you your wrap-up question is, I wanted to know, because you explained that like entrepreneurship is hard, and you explained some of the reasons why. And I would like to know, how would you what advice would you share for individuals who are in relationships, who are like, it could be romantic relationships, like it can be marriage, it can be dating or
Mhm.
serious relationships, even just relationships with close friends and family. Um, how how do you best support them? For example, if there's a partnership where one person is now making that decision to explore entrepreneurship, how do they best stay connected? And if both people,
Mhm.
because my
Yeah.
understanding is Corinne is also an entrepreneur as well, so it's like,
Yeah.
how do you make those dynamics work so you
Yeah.
can, and I know you've mentioned some things that you keep in your life, but you can speak more to that as well.
Well, and we're going to go back to what we said about the big picture. I think the thing, number one thing you should be doing as a couple is to do your own big pictures, like, do them separately. The thing is, and then you compare notes. You read them to each other. So there's two things that are going to happen. You're going to realize, like, honey, we're totally aligned. We want the exact same thing. And it's great. Like if that happens, perfect. It's awesome. And this is an exercise you should keep doing. We recommend you do it annually. Like every year you redo that exercise because things change and things evolve, right?
Yeah.
So that's one thing. The other case scenario is that you will do that and you will realize that we are not heading to the same mountain, right? So there's two things that can happen. I mean, obviously, you can ask yourself, is this the right relationship for me or not? Or it's opening your eyes to other ways to do things or other destinations to your partner and say, oh, wow, okay, you want to head there, but I want to go to this mountain. But you know what? Let's move on and see if there's like a mountain that we see that we both like. And they're like,
Mhm.
oh, here it is. You know what? I think a lot of people, like, for example, they're really quick to jump to conclusions without knowing. And when you do that, you understand, first of all, what really motivates the values that are motivating, that person to go there. And usually, even though it might look you want different things, it's really the values that you have that will make it really stick together as a couple, right? So I see Corinne and I, loyalty is huge, sustainability is big, we all have these type of, so that doesn't mean that the road is not bumpy. It is bumpy. It is bumpy often, but we learn to manage, like, hey, when the road is bumpy, we're going to slow down and we're going to learn to deal with that. We're not going to freak out. And yeah, so do that first. So first of all, do that big picture exercise, understanding that, and understand again. that self-discipline doesn't happen overnight. It will be one, supporting your spouse or your significant other to be self-disciplined. So implementing things in your life that you might not have implemented yet, but that's part of being a good entrepreneurial self-leader. Helping your partner to be more self-aware, so allowing that to happen, but through discovery, through, sorry for the words, but fucking up. Like, you will fuck up in your journey. It's inevitable. It will happen. Yeah. And also self-respect, respecting the other person for what they want. And the thing is that it's a journey again. Like, you will understand things along the way and be like, hey, honey, like, I like this more than that. And Carrie and I talk about that all the time. Like, we question each other all the time. We question our, like, I reevaluate my life as a whole regularly. Like, I'm just like thinking about things and what I want. And, there's things that arise one year that were not just there last year. I'm like, should I follow that or not? Should I look into this? Should I, and things change, things evolve, and it's part of the certainty of living. And especially as an entrepreneur, is that things will change and you got to be okay with that.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing your words of wisdom, especially because you have continued to make that a priority. And I know it's something that a lot of people, myself included, it's something that's of huge importance. And it's like, but when you're making a decision to go in a certain direction, it's like, how do you make things work or do your best to make things work along the way? So thank you so much for sharing that.
But it all goes back to like working out, for example. Working out will always be hard. It's not easy. It will be hard. Lifting
not always fun.
Hard. It is. But it's consistency that matters, right? It's discipline. Like what's hard for you now will be easy in 2 years. That doesn't mean that you're not going to be working out hard. You will, but it will not feel as heavy because you are used to it. Discipline brought that, for you. So it's the same thing with everything, whether it's, your personal life or your professional life. It's allowing time to do its thing, staying consistent and aware and respecting that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you so much, Dave. And so the last question that I'd like to ask you is, what are 3 of your top books that you would recommend for those of us who are seeking time freedom, financial freedom, creative freedom, and are looking for, and these books can either be things that are philosophical or things that are action oriented or a combination. So yeah, what would what would you recommend?
So here's the thing. I'm not an avid reader. I have actually quite a bit of books, but I'm a weird reader where I rarely read a book cover to cover. Mm-hmm. And there's a few that I did though, and I'll tell you what they are. But I usually go by topic. So if I want to know something, I'm going to go and take a book and I'm going to browse the book and understand and see patterns. That's why academically it was hard for me, because I was never able to just like memorize something and just like say it again. It was like, I need to understand it. I need to look for every angle. And that's the way I operate. But there's a few books. I'm turning around here. I'm looking at my bookshelf, but there's one book that I really love called Built to Sell by John Warrillow. And I always recommend this book to people who have more of a service business. So because you're so tied to serving other people, like it's very hard for you to understand processes and products and building projects that way, because you're just so used to serve as a back and forth mechanism. And in the book, and it's a business story. So there's lessons, but through a business story about how to actually productize your services to be more streamlined and also focused on the things that you offer, but also where you can charge more money and have a sellable business in the end. It's a great story, but for people who understand that, hey, it's not just things that I do in my business is actually step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4, and step 5 in my offering. And that's my system. And that's what I'm offering. Like, it just helps people gain a lot of clarity. I loved it. It was great. What are other books? Anything from Patrick Lencioni, for example, what do I have? Getting Naked is great. What is it? The Go-Giver? That's Bob Burg. Love this book too. Great book. That's going to sound weird, but honestly, like, Done by Noon is my, I wrote it, but honestly, like, it's, I read it often, even though, like, I keep reading it in order to remind myself of everything in some ways, or the system, or things that I want to remind myself. And I'm like, yeah, I'm still doing that, or because I kind of don't think about it anymore because it's all, embodied. And I'm like, okay. And so, yeah, it's weird to say my own book is one of my favorite ones, but anyway,
that's pretty awesome.
But what do we have? I have a few ones. Rocket Fuel is fantastic because, yeah, Rocket Fuel by Gino Wickman and John C. Winters. It's about the relationship. If you're in a partnership, it really shows you the type of personalities that you have. And it talks about the integrator and the visionary and how this is the perfect combo when you have a business. And that's the reason why a lot of partnerships don't work, and why partnerships also work. I'm a big fan of partnerships, but in the right context. And for example, Matt Gallant and I had a business together before reading this book, and I'm like, why? How come our business work well? Besides the fact that we like each other, and we're friends, and we have a weird sense of humor that only us can understand. But but it's just we understood the dynamics between co-founders and what it takes. The visionary and the integrator, and as in that context, it clicked. So there's that. Rocket Fuel, Traction as well, which is a great system. You can read that. I feel like Traction, and I was actually talking to someone the other day who's an EOS certified implementer. So it's funny because we kind of do the same. I got inspired to do the certification based on EOS, and it's the same thing, the way they operate. And it's kind of some of the principles that they have are similar principles for the business side, like for the organization as a whole. What we share in Done by Noon is mostly for, the entrepreneur, the person. All right. Yes, obviously it's organized the way you approach your business and you approach your tasks and everything. But Traction is really about the organization as a whole. And they both fit so well together that, it was, I always love Traction. And then there's so many other books that I read. I read biographies. I love biography. I'm reading Samuel de Champlain's biography right now. It's like 800 pages. It's probably going to take me 17 years. I'm doing the same. Like, I'm reading things and I'm like going back to his childhood, and then I'm going back to when he started hanging out in my area where right now anyway. And there's so many books right now. I'm reading the New Fish Wave right now, which is a book on sustainable fishing and creation of marine byproducts in Iceland, which is totally weird, but I'm totally into that right now.
Okay.
I'm reading this kind of stuff.
Different. But
that
makes sense.
Yeah, that's funny because that's part of my core values. And I created a nonprofit. So we incorporated not too long ago, but I created a nonprofit here for my community in the Acadian Peninsula here in New Brunswick, where and it's based on different approaches and obviously what they're building in Iceland, where we got inspired by that, but also based on asset-based community development. And that's another thing I'm geeking out on right now. It's the way, because sustainability is such a big part of my core values, that bringing that to my community is important. And we have actually an economic engine where we help entrepreneurs. First of all, number one is that we help entrepreneurs become better entrepreneurial leaders. So there's a lot of things that I teach at Effic that, I brought to this nonprofit to teach local entrepreneurs to become better entrepreneurs. But second, we have another piece that creates projects for the community. So for example, we started a community warehouse and fulfillment center here in the peninsula, where entrepreneurs who have e-commerce businesses can come, get good warehousing and fulfill their orders from the peninsula here, because there was no infrastructure. And the thing is that this structure, this is kind of a little business in the business, generates profits. And the profits are being redirected, are being put into a fund. And this fund is to actually use that as leverage to create new projects, which will be profitable. And the more, all the profits go back in the pot, and the pot serves to create new projects. And we do that. And the goal is that, hey, in 20 years, we're going to have 10 very profitable small businesses that bring money to that. And the great thing is that entrepreneurs see that as like, how can we collaborate with you guys? How can we help? How can we contribute? And we're getting contributions. We're getting sponsorships as well, because local entrepreneurs sponsor younger entrepreneurs in order to become, the next generation of leaders. And we have community donations. It's fantastic. Like, we're building something that is so totally like sustainable. And yeah, it's a big. The more I go, it's funny because the more I talk about it, the more I realize that that's kind of my superpower, is to make us something sustainable. And yeah, everything that I do professionally is just based on that. But I'm very, very, very into this right now. So I'm reading quite a bit on this.
Yes. Yeah. That makes total sense. Wow, that was so cool. Thank you. Thank you for sharing all the resources that you suggest that we look into, and more about your nonprofit and the different that kind of compounding effect that you're helping or contributing to generating, and excited to hear about how that continues to build down the line as well.
I can't wait too. I mean, it's just the beginning right now. I'm putting it all together with a group of local entrepreneurs. We're 7 on the board right now. And yeah, it kind of originated from kind of an idea of what we wanted for the community. And so I brought my knowledge, other people brought their resources, and we've built that. And it's so here's the thing, we're very targeted too with French-speaking rural communities on the Canadian East Coast. So we have many communities here that that rely on fishing as their main resource, right? So they fish, historically they take the fish, they fillet the fish, they sell the fillets for a little profit, and they just exploit the resource, and that's all they know how to do. And we're like, well, first of all, what they do in Iceland is that they have a movement called 100% fish. That how can we produce, or we can transform like more of the fish? So instead of just filleting the fish and having 50% that we just, which is more of a business mindset, how can we have more of an entrepreneurial mindset and say, okay, how can we take the extra 50% that is not being transformed and create byproducts with it? So right now we're looking, for example, to create marine collagen with different types of fish waste. We're looking to create different products, whether it's supplements or food or even clothing or things for farm. Like, we're looking into all this in order to do that. And so there's different projects and tests, and we collaborate with research institutes, and yeah, it's fun. But because of that, we're trying to expand the entrepreneurial mindset and culture into smaller rural communities who usually don't have access to it, and helping them and enabling them to create, these assets for the community that are going to generate profit and ensure economic resilience to their community. So yeah, it's interesting. I can't wait to see like what, we'll talk in 20 years and see like, hey, remember we talked about this?
Yes. That's absolutely phenomenal. Wow. I'm so impressed because I did not know, I had no idea about that. It's just phenomenal. That's amazing. Well, thank you so much, Dave, for being here. Really appreciate your time and all the knowledge that you've shared. so grateful to have talked to you. And everybody, please check out the show notes. We're going to be I'll post the information that David shared and some other information about Effic and some other stuff as well. Thank you again, Dave, for your time, and wishing you and your family a wonderful day.
Thank you. You too, Alisia. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye.
Okay, bye-bye.
Thank you so much for tuning in to this episode of the Teach Me Freedom podcast. We hope you enjoyed it and found it beneficial. Feel free to reach out to us at teachmefreedom2020@gmail.com. And if you haven't done so yet, subscribe to the show on your favorite platform for streaming content. Feel free to comment and leave a 4 or 5-star review if you feel so inclined. Connect with you next time.